Now let's talk about why, even though the Edition 50 is probably my perfect car, I just can't bring myself to order one. Hello and welcome back to the Volkswagen channel, and welcome to the very first video recorded and published in 2026, which is rather fittingly about a Golf GTI, seeing as it's the 50th anniversary year of the Golf GTI. It's not about my GTI daily driver though, it's about the Golf GTI Edition 50, which went on sale in the UK just yesterday. So I thought we'd hop onto the configurator. I would show you how I'd spec mine and how I wouldn't spec mine. And at the end of the video, I will explain to you why there isn't a cat in hell's chance of me buying one, which is quite depressing on this day, just a few days before the most depressing day of the year, because I've been looking forward to this car going on sale more than any car ever, and you could say it's almost my perfect car, and the chances of another car coming along in the future, what with all the emission stuff going on, are pretty slim. But before we get started, let me just remind you guys how you can support the channel. The easiest way is to subscribe. Another way is to help me fill up all this empty space in my unit by letting me buy your interesting Volkswagen Group vehicle. I'm looking for cars with a full service history, average mileage or below, really good condition, and ideally unmodified. If you're thinking about selling via an online car buying service, then I suggest you carry on doing that for various reasons. If you're looking at trading in though with a dealer, particularly a VW main dealer, although it's actually the car was bought from a seller who was going to trade it in at Porsche and we beat them, then get in touch and I promise you a very fair trade price and no hassle, no security risk. You'll only deal with me, and I generally don't chip people down as well when I come and see the cars if they've been described accurately. Anybody disagrees with that, you can say so in the comments. So if you've got anything like that, then drop me an email, andrew@volkswizard.co.uk. Right, let's now hop on the configurator and talk about the Edition 50, which one day will probably be in this unit, but how long away that will be, I've got no idea. Okay, before we start speccing my perfect Edition 50, let's just have a look at the model tree where you have to select the Edition 50 from the other models, because something interesting has happened here. So we start off the GTIs with the £41,810 base GTI 265. We then have the Club Sport for £44,220, and then we have the Edition 50 for £47,995, so £3,775 more than the Club Sport. Remember that number because it's quite important. And then we have the R, which is actually cheaper than the Edition 50, which seems a bit strange in this model tree, but £46,850, so £1,145 less than the Edition 50. Most interesting though is that we have the R Black Edition, which is a top spec car, performance pack of standard, 19s, just really needs DCC for £775. That is £175 more than the GTI Edition 50, which without the performance pack is basically a Club Sport, which is £44,220. Anyway, we'll come to all these numbers later. Let's now have a look at the Edition 50 on the UK configurator. Okay, so we've got 5 colours to choose from. We have got black, they've all got a black roof, so black with a black roof, that's £830. We have got dark moss green, the limited colour unique to the Edition 50 at the moment anyway, for £830. We have Moonstone Grey for just £520, so it is a solid colour. We have Pure White for free, and we have, back from the dead, Tornado Red. So they're making this out as some cool heritage colour. Yes, the Mark II was in Tornado Red, and actually not many people liked it because it faded. The later ones are lacquered, but they still have a bit of a stigma from those bad years. It's not really that older colour because we only lost it when the 7.5 moved to Mark 8 back in 2020. I think cars look good in Tornado Red. I just don't think they sell very well in Tornado Red. As a used car dealer who's been selling these cars for 25 years, Mark IIs, up GTIs, 7.5 GTIs, they struggle. The only exception to that rule is Club Sport S, where out of red, white and black, red seems to be the most popular. Okay, let's move on to the wheels then. They're all 19, the Richmonds have gone, yay! Standard wheel though is the Queenstown with a red glaze. Yeah, I mean, I know what they're trying to do, but it's not for me. Is it for you? Well, if it isn't, there's a good choice still. So they're standard. If you want to go to Estorils, whether black or diamond cut, it's £395. When I first looked at the configurator, it would bundle that in with the performance pack, but if you go back into options and then find the performance pack and uncheck it, you then aren't forced to have the performance pack with any change to the wheels. That's quite important. We'll come to performance pack shortly. So diamond cut Estorils 395, black Estorils 395. You can have the red wheels with the performance pack, which is £3,675. It does say 880 quid for the semi-slicks, but actually they're part of the performance pack. Again, something we'll come to shortly. And the other optional wheel is the Varmanau, the forged wheel, my favourite wheel, £750 to have them in black. Or you can have them in grey, a very dark grey, and diamond cut for £750 as well. It's a pretty wheel. Whether the Edition 50 needs something a little bit racier, I'll leave that to you to decide, but I would go for diamond cut Varmanaus, and colour-wise, I'd go for the green. Let's move on to the next step then, the interior. Now the good news is they finally made a bit of effort with the interior, maybe a bit too much effort when it comes to the red pedals, but you can always swap them out. We've got a really nice interior trim now with some different fabrics. The red bits have gone off the back of the seats, which are a bit clumsy. We've got red seat belts now instead. I haven't seen them in the fabric, but I think they're going to look good and increase their cabin ambience. And if ever a car needs an increase in cabin ambience, it's a Marcator 8.5 Golf. So you don't really want to mess around with those, but if you want to, you can spec leather, which is quite expensive. Let's have a look. Optional interior upholstery, £2,190. You do get other functions like memory for the driver's seats, but heated seats are standard, whichever one you go for, so I wouldn't really mess with that. Okay, now let's have a look at the other options. You've got the tilting and sliding panoramic glass sunroof for £1,280. I like sunroofs, but I'm not sure I'd have one on Edition 50, because if I'm going to have an Edition 50, I want the performance pack, and the sunroof kind of undoes a lot of the dynamic work the engineers have done with the performance pack by putting all that weight in the roof. Winter pack is standard. If you want rear heated seats, it's another 500 quid. I wouldn't personally bother with that. Driver's assistance, well, we've probably got a lot of this forced upon us, but we've got adaptive cruise control, which we all kind of like. Area view, 3D parking system, £345, no brainer. Head-up display, I'm really not too fussed about, that's 610 quid. Tech Pack Parking Comfort Pro is standard, so front and rear parking sensors, navigation. It's only on there because that isn't standard in other markets, but it's standard for the UK. On the outside, there's some mention of Club Sport bumpers, but they're included anyway. But I can check it and then it does something strange. That's really odd. If you know what that means, let me know. I think it's just a glitch. In-car entertainment, so we've got the best nav system and screen you can get. You can have Harman Kardon though for 630 quid, which I would get for the sound, but also because it just makes the car look a little bit better inside. We've done the interior. Service plan, yeah, if you want that. But more importantly, and like last almost in the list, is the performance package, which you're going to want, because otherwise an Edition 50 is just a Club Sport. You get the Akrapovic exhaust, which doesn't sound any different to standard because it's still subject to drive-by noise regulations. If you think it looks better, then that's subjective. Give me the standard system in black, which I think is what you do get with the base Edition 50, but not with the performance pack. You get a number of chassis revisions to make the car feel sportier. This is where it differs from the Club Sport mainly, because you can have the Akrapovic on the Club Sport. So the engineers, Benny Loister, Sebastian Willmann and his team, have gone to great lengths to make the car dynamically superior to the Club Sport. The Club Sport's good. There is room for improvement. It's not a Club Sport S. And also, that includes dynamic chassis control. By the way, dynamic chassis control is standard whether you go for performance pack or not. What else have we got? Safety and security. I think you can add some more airbags, which if you're going to drive it on the Nürburgring is probably a good idea. And then sports tyres. So this is listed as an option, £880. I think you can order them outside of the performance pack. No, you have to have them with the performance pack. Actually, they're included in the performance pack. And that's probably because at some point in the future, there will be it's probably already been done to be honest, there'll be the announcement that the car has set the front-wheel drive lap record at the Nordschleife, and they'd like you to be able to buy the car that set the record, unlike other manufacturers who fiddle this. VW are actually pretty straight up with this. And the Bridgestone semi-slick tyres, Bridgestone Pretender Race, will be key to that time, as well as some of the tweaks in the performance pack. So look out for that. Problem with that is I've got two cars that were sold new with semi-slicks, and they're both on normal tyres now, Goodyear Eagle F1 Supersport and Michelin Pilot Sport 4S. They're really good sporty tyres, but well-rounded. You know, they'll handle all year round quite happily. So you can't have the performance pack with normal tyres, so you'll be probably changing those if you want to run the car all year round. And why would you not? Unlike the Club Sport S, it's got 5 doors, it's got 5 seats, and it's got an automatic gearbox. It's very usable. Okay, so how much does my Perfect Edition 50 cost? Well, it's £53,475. You can spec one up to about 58 if you go for leather and sunroof and a couple of other bits. So you might think that's a lot of money and that's why I wouldn't buy one, but that's only the RRP, isn't it? There's bound to be some discount because it's a Volkswagen. I can get 15% off a Club Sport, which is, let's face it, basically the same car. Surely I can get a similar amount off an Edition 50. Well, sadly, that isn't the case. Now, let's talk about why, even though the Edition 50 is probably my perfect car, I just can't bring myself to order one. Price, as I've hinted at already, is part of it, but it's not everything. Firstly, nobody outside of Volkswagen, apart from a select group of journalists, have driven the Edition 50, and those journalists only drove it in a straight line at the Area Lessian test track back in June 2025. It's a very weird situation where there has been no driving impression published at all. And the car's not only on sale in Germany now for quite a long time, but it's also on sale in the UK. Reviews may not tell you what you need to know as a real world owner. They might be on a test track, they might be on a smooth German road, but they are better than nothing. What we really need is a trusted UK reviewer, and I do not mean an influencer, that's for sure, to go and find a bad road in Germany, to take an Edition 50 there with the performance pack and see how it rides, because I have a horrible feeling it's going to be unbearably stiff. Club Sport with DCC in the UK is borderline. Normal Edition 50 comes with DCC, so it will be borderline as well. With performance pack, it's undoubtedly going to be stiffer, and that could mean it's on the wrong side of the border. It's going to be just too unbearable for the UK roads. So that's something we need to wait for. I think UK cars come in about April. Let's go back to price then. Now, I started an Instagram thread yesterday talking about my issues with the Edition 50, and thanks to everybody who's joined in on that. Even if you don't agree with my views, I still appreciate your inputs into that. Now, one of the key points made by a couple of people was that when you take the Edition 50 price and compare it with the Club Sport Edition 40 from 10 years ago, adjusted for inflation, it's there or thereabouts the same, which is a fair point, but the Club Sport Edition 40 didn't actually sell that well. It sat in the showrooms, heavily discounted until well into 2017. So it's not really a good example. And in 2016 or 17, we weren't in the midst of a cost of living crisis that we are now. So even adjusting it for inflation, it doesn't still mean it's as affordable as it was back then. The other problem is nobody could really complain about the Mark 7. It was a good car. The Mark 8 and the 8.5, still to some degree, just isn't as aspirational as a Mark 7, so the desirability factor really isn't as strong. Now, in previous videos, I've said I may buy an Edition 50 if it's subject to the same level of discounting as other models in the range, such as the Club Sport, which can easily be had for 15% off. Well, guess what? I've heard from a good source, somebody who actually paid full asking price for an Edition 50 yesterday, that VW have told their dealers to not discount the Edition 50 at all. So they expect you to pay the full asking price. Let me just say that again. You have to pay the full asking price for a Volkswagen. That is a very rare situation. The last time I remember it was back in 2016 when the Club Sport S came out. And I was okay with that. I was so okay, I actually paid 33,995 for a Club Sport S, and I enjoyed that car for 2 years and barely lost any money on it. But this car is not a Club Sport S. For a start, it's a bit unclear as to how many are ever going to be made or imported into the UK. Evo magazine has said 50 units, but that really doesn't make sense. I can't see how VW are going to repay all that R&D on that car with just 50 units. But even if that is true, that is what they're saying now. Volkswagen will not swear to you that they won't import any more, which will then really affect the resale value of your car. So bear that in mind. Manufacturers do this all the time. I remember with the Mark IV R32, it was only meant to be a handful of cars in 3 colours with 3 doors, and then we got, I think, 2 more batches with more doors and more colours, and that really affected the value of those R32s in the first few years. Now, some people have said on Instagram, we're only going to get 1,000 edition 50s, but only 1,000? That really is quite a lot of cars for the UK. I mean, when was the last time you saw a Club Sport or an R8.5 on the road? I haven't seen one for weeks. So that's quite a lot of cars for a very niche market. And I have to remind you, in 2016 with the Edition 40, which was arguably a more desirable car in Mark 7 guys, those cars struggled to sell. They were sat in the showrooms, and a lot of them are registered on a 17 reg. So 1,000, I think, is quite a lot. And if that is true, then I think initial depreciation will be quite high. And that's an issue for me because I don't plan on keeping the car for that long, maybe 1 year tops. Now, I did think VW were maybe trying to exploit their hot hatch monopoly they have somehow inherited by manufacturers like Hyundai, Ford and Honda withdrawing all their hot hatches from the market. But because Volkswagen's other hot hatches are still available with a hefty discount, this bullishness with Edition 50 pricing is purely based around some perceived desirability, which I really can't understand. It is just a Club Sport with a bit of trim, or if you get the performance pack, it's just a Club Sport that rides a lot worse on our UK roads. Obviously, I'm speculating there, but yeah, I'm pretty confident about that. And I'm surprised about this because the Club Sport, which it's related to, has had a very tepid reception from the UK press. I like the car as a package for daily use, but the reviewers who don't really consider daily use that much, apart from Ben Barry from Car Magazine, haven't really warmed to it. So why would the Edition 50, that's pretty much the same car, be so much more desirable and justify that level of bullishness when it comes to pricing? I'm very confused by that. I'm also confused by the fact that Volkswagen, for only the Edition 50, are asking for a £2,500 deposit instead of the usual 1,000. Now, they can do what they want. It's up to them. But if it's such a desirable car where demand is going to outstrip supply, you don't have to increase the deposit. You could say, don't bother giving us a deposit, mate, because if you don't want it, we've got 10 people waiting for one. Another weird thing is that Volkswagen have changed the APR interest rate on the PCP for the Edition 50 from 7.9%, which is the norm across, I think, nearly every Volkswagen, to 4.9%. Now, this can't be a bad thing, particularly if you've been made to pay the full asking price. And it does, to some degree, compensate for the fact that you haven't had a discount or a deposit contribution if you stick with the car for the full term. But still, from what I can work out, on a 4-year, 40,000 mile PCP with a 6,633 deposit, you're still paying £88 more per month for an Edition 50 than a Club Sport. So the Club Sport isn't discounted apart from the £4,500 deposit contribution they're putting in. So you can get more off this, but let's look at the Volkswagen's figures, which don't allow for any further discounting. You're still paying 20% more per month for 4 years for a car that on the list price is only 10% more. So that's a basic Edition 50, by the way, versus a basic Club Sport. I can only conclude that they really want the buyers of edition 50s to be people who are in for the long term. So by doing this, to a degree, they're ruling out flippers who get a discount. Then when the car arrives and it's physically there, they can sell it for close to the RRP or even the RRP. They want you to stick with the car for the full length of the finance, because they actually get £54,000 for a car that had a list price of 48. The other thing is, as well, is that it does prevent people from taking out the finance, getting the deposit contribution, and then cancelling, which again they don't want. They want people to give them all the interest from the finance. It's a puzzler, that, but it's still a more expensive car to a significant degree, even with that reduced APR. I've also heard from two sources that the cars available to dealers in this first batch are pre-specced, so you can't just go and order from a blank sheet an edition 50. The dealer has to modify a car that's already in the system that's heading towards them. So I don't know yet if that means that you can't have the car that you want. Say you don't want one with performance pack for whatever reason, that you're forced to have that. If you do know, then let me know in the comments. This is meant to be an interactive video, so by all means correct me if I'm wrong with anything, and if you know better, and I'm sure a lot of you guys do. Another reason that makes it difficult for me to commit to an edition 50 is to do with the warranty. Now, if you want an edition 50, for it to stand out above the Club Sport, you really need to have the performance pack. But if you have the performance pack, I can guarantee you that it's going to be very hard to feel the benefit of that within the law here in the UK on the road. So you'll want to take it on track where you can indulge in all that engineering effort that's gone into it. But the problem is, there's a good chance if you drive it on track that you'll invalidate your warranty. Now, the 3-year warranty terms and conditions are a little bit vague. All they say is that it doesn't cover damage caused by motorsport activity. Now, strictly speaking, track day isn't motorsport, but do you want to take Volkswagen to court and argue over that? Because I know I don't. What's a bit less ambiguous is if you go for the all-in warranty, which I know a lot of you guys do, it's like a service plan with warranty as well. It says that if any failure can be attributed to the car having ever been used on track, then the claim will be invalid. So even if you're the second or third owner and VW can find that car was driven on track by the first owner, they could throw out any warranty claim. But the biggest reason not to buy an edition 50 is the Club Sport. This is really all the hot hatch anyone could ever need if you spec it with DCC and 19-inch wheels. Drive the Deal is quoting one with that spec for under £40,000. That's £8,000 less than a non-performance pack edition 50, which is basically identical apart from the differences in interior trim and a few badges, and it's got 25 horsepower more on paper anyway. And that's not the only competition from within the Volkswagen range. We also have the Golf R Black Edition, which I mentioned at the beginning of the video. This is just £170 more than the Edition 50, and it comes with the performance pack. It's not the same performance pack as the Edition 50, but it's still the only performance pack you can order, and it comes with the car. So you're going to be about £3,500 better off compared to an Edition 50 with the performance pack. And all you really need to do to make that car complete is to spec DCC for like £775. And that Black Edition is still subject to a big discount via Drive the Deal. They're quoting £41,748. So if you stick on DCC for 775 quid, you're looking at £42,500 versus 48 for the Edition 50. You've got to be crazy to buy an Edition 50 when you can have that R for that kind of price. But I know some of you guys out there will have done exactly that, and I want to hear your reasons for buying the Edition 50 when there's so much else to choose from, even just within the Volkswagen range. We won't touch on used alternatives in this video because that could be quite a long video. Actually, I'm more interested in considering what you can buy for the price of just the performance pack. What's that, 3,700 quid? early push Boxster, probably a good Mark V Golf GTI, a Mark 1 TT 225 or V6. You could even have a Roadster. You could even have a Mark II TT 2-litre T, which is a really nice car. If you've got any other ideas what you can buy for £3,700, then let me know via the comments. As ever, guys, thanks for watching this Volkswagen video. Keep subscribing, keep commenting, and I'll see you for the next one very soon. Which after this video is very unlikely to be from the launch event for the Golf GTI Edition 50.